1 p.m., so we will begin our meeting. If you all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Page behind here. So good evening. We have it's kind of a quiet room. It's intimate. I like it. Tonight we're pleased to welcome and recognize, well, not welcome, maybe welcome virtually, but recognize 30 outstanding Parkway teachers who have been selected by their peers as their school's Teacher of the Year. Their dedication to students, community spirit, and personal commitment to excellence has earned them this honor. A very special thank you to the Parkway Alumni Association for sponsoring the Teacher of the Year program. The Alumni Association provides monetary awards and crystal apples for the district elementary, middle, and high school Teachers of the Year recipients. In addition, apparently the Board of Education will be recognized tonight for some reason. I'm not sure why. But first, I would like to welcome Dr. Chelsea Watson, our Deputy Superintendent, to introduce our 2022 Teachers of the Year.
Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Stover. It's been said that the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, and the great teacher inspires. And it's clear to me that I have the opportunity to share with you greatness this evening. And Maya Angelou once said, when you learn, teach, when you get, give. We know these teachers that we are going to honor this evening give so much of themselves each and every day, and they change lives and help to make this world and this community a better place. So to all of the educators that we are honoring this evening, we thank you. We thank you for your craft and your commitment and your dedication to our Parkway students. So at this time, let's begin the recognition. Why do I always seem to have trouble with this? I'm going to start with elementary and early childhood. Barrett's Elementary School, Erica Michaels. She teaches kindergarten. Belle Reeve, Kelly Burden, kindergarten. Carmen Trails, Andy Hogan, 4th grade. Claymont, Mara Johan, reading specialist. Craig Maddie Drell, librarian. Early childhood, Ashley Yeager, preschool teacher. Green Trails, Kelly Smith, 2nd grade. I don't think I'm doing this, so thank you. Hannah Woods, Katie Jones, PE, and Katie Jones is also the elementary Teacher of the Year. Henry, Caitlin McGovern, who teaches 1st grade. Highcroft Ridge, Mary Kate Mudd, who teaches 5th grade. Mason Ridge, we have Joe Maiden, a special educator. McKelvey, Shelley Schoen, the librarian. Oakbrook, Bridget Gravono, kindergarten. Piermont, Julie Bushman, special educator. Riverbend, Kelly Higdon, kindergarten. Ross, Ann Arstegi, special educator. Shenandoah Valley, Stacy Beauchamp, 5th grade. Sorrento Springs, Jamie Kerr, nurse. Wren Hollow, Anna Jamboretz, 3rd grade. And now we will recognize our middle school educators. Central Middle, Lindsay Katz, who teaches ELA. Northeast Middle School, Gina Covington James, who teaches business. South Middle, Keely Ablin, band instructor. Southwest Middle School, Dr. Paulo Ribeiro, physical education and health, and he is also the Parkway Middle School Teacher of the Year and also the Parkway School District Teacher of the Year. West Middle, Emma Welling, a special educator. Now we will move to high school and virtual campus. Central High ELA teacher, Christian Schaefer. Fern Ridge, John Russ Beckman, who teaches social studies. North High School, Kara Schulte, who teaches science, and Kara is the high school teacher of the year for Parkway. South High, Jennifer Holschutz, special educator. West High, Chris Donaldson, industrial technology. And virtual campus, Jamie Chapman, a special educator. Please give all of these amazing educators a round of applause. In conclusion, it is certainly an honor when teachers are recognized by their peers and colleagues, and these teachers represent all of the teachers in these individual schools and all of the teachers in Parkway, and we just have such a wealth of knowledge and fantastic educators. So thank you for recognizing them tonight.
Thank you, Chelsea. And congratulations definitely to all of our teachers, those of you that might be watching at home. Congratulations. We thank also the members of the Teacher of the Year Selection Committee, chaired by Tony Dwiggins from West Middle. Although I know they enjoy reading the nominations, it takes a lot of time. It's not an easy task to narrow it down to the elementary, middle, high school, and district Teachers of the Year. As I mentioned before, each teacher will receive a gift and a certificate, and those have been sent to their schools. So thank you to our teachers, their families, and administrators for joining us virtually for the very special recognition. I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Marty.
Well, good evening, and I too, as superintendent, and I know my team wants to congratulate our Teachers of the Year, and they really are, what a great group. And I also am very proud that we are going to, at our appreciation night on April 25th, we'll be in person. If everything goes as planned, we'll be able to honor those individuals that night, among others, pillars and other recognition. So we're looking forward to that. Well, Governor Parsons has declared March 6 through 12, 2022, as School Board Recognition Week. In a moment, I'll read the proclamation, but I want to just make a few comments ahead of that. You know, I am most proud to serve our community and our school district as superintendent, but I'm also proud of you, board members, and the ability to serve you and work with you. And I say, again, I speak for my superintendent action team members as we're able to work together and achieve so much. You know, as board members in Parkway, I want to say that you recognize a wide range of individuals, students mainly, that we are serving. And, you know, we have to represent all demographics and all students here in Parkway. And I think it's good just to remind you, you don't have to be reminded as much as perhaps all of us and certainly our citizens. You know, in Parkway, this is a little bit of the diversity and the demographics that we have, again, and you take great pride in representing all our students. We have over 80 languages spoken in homes and Parkway families. 40% of our Parkway students are non-white. Over 3,000 of our students have special needs, special education services required. Over 20% of our Parkway students live in poverty. Over 1,000 of our Parkway students reside in the city of St. Louis. And we know that our students' families that have been impacted by many challenges, mental health challenges over the years, and you represent all of these. Plus, nearly 3,000 employees in Parkway. And then all our many families that represent the Parkway community. Wow, what an awesome task that you have, and you take that very seriously. You as a board recognize that and do it in such a good way each and every meeting that we are gathered and the decisions you have to make. And then there are some other words I'd like to describe of our board as in terms of their leadership. Your empathy for all, and your caring for all. Your unselfishness and all the time and attention that you put into this role as Parkway board members, away from your families and away from other things that would require your attention. Your collaboration with one another and with our superintendent's action team, with our staff and so many others. your respect for all. I'm always very proud of the way you respect everyone at these meetings and in our community and our communication. Your focus on students and your pledge to consider the needs of all, as I mentioned. Your professionalism, you model so well our mission and the expectations that we would have of anybody who's a leader in Parkway. You live our Parkway ethos day in and day out. So I want to thank you for your service. I especially want tonight to thank Sam and Pam, who are nearing the end of their tenure as board members, for their service. Thank you so much. The next meeting, which will be your last official meeting, we'll talk more about your service. Again, I think I speak for the community when I honor you and show our appreciation for what you do for this community, our students in particular, our staff, and so many more. And now I'm going to read the proclamation from Governor Parsons. Whereas a system of quality public education is essential in the future of our nation, and whereas the people of Missouri have a long tradition of support of public education and their local school districts, and whereas local school boards are the ultimate expression of the unique American institution of representative governance of public school districts, and whereas local school boards, acting on behalf and in close connections with the people of their communities, chart the direction of education in their communities, and whereas local school boards serve as a key community advocate for children, youth, and public schools, now therefore I, Michael L. Parson, Governor of the State of Missouri, do hereby declare March 6th through 12th, 2022 to be School Board Recognition Week in Missouri, and urge all Missourians to recognize school boards as they strive with their communities to improve our public schools through quality leadership. So again, thank you. I think again of the board members who I've had the pleasure of serving with here in other districts. I have to say that we are so blessed, especially through the challenges that we've had the last 2 years, to have served with you, and I have great admiration for your work. So please honor our Board of Education. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your words, and thank you all. Next up, we have a couple of additions, corrections, and/or modifications to the agenda. Those include 7.01, addendum to agenda item 11.05, approval of personnel items, and 7.02, addition of agenda item 11.28, approval of Parkway Valley Park Cooperative Sponsorship Memorandum of Understanding. Next up, 8.0, public comments. We have none. After that, it is, let's see, the next up is, I would like a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for March 9th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The next regular board meeting will take place on Wednesday, April 13th, 2022, beginning at 7 p.m. here at the Parkway Welcome Center. The board's annual organization meeting will take place at 6:30 p.m. prior to the regular meeting. 10.02 is a little bit new, or an item that we need to address tonight very briefly, and that is the public disclosure of intent to use CMAR for the bond issue 2022. So we, the Public School District Board of Education, intend on using the construction management at-risk delivery method as one of our 2022 bond issue construction processes. The RFQ process is anticipated to begin in early April 2022. Next up, board candidate filing. Board candidate filing ended on Tuesday, December 28th. 10 candidates have filed for the 2 open positions on Parkway Board of Education. The candidates in order of filing and as their names will appear on the ballot are Jeffrey Spector, and I'm sorry, if you are here tonight, please by all means stand and be recognized. Jeffrey Spector, Robert Reety, Hallie Baker, who, by the way, withdrew from the election on February 26th, so her name may still appear on the ballot. Philip Caldwell, Barbara Bouchart, Wayne Hartman, Marla Kolick, Jake Wagner. Jake also withdrew from the election on March 4th, 2022, and his name may still appear on the ballot. Tony Spielberg and Scott Winfrey. The election will be held on Tuesday, April 5th. The terms of Ms. Hill and Dr. Ciortino expire in April 2022. Next up is Board Superintendent reports. Matt?
All right, I'll just share one thing. This past Monday, I went with the Missouri School Board Association in Jefferson City. It's always an interesting experience walking around the halls of Jefferson City, but I'll say this year has been, it's a lot more activity in some ways, and I'll just kind of share really one bill and the concerns we have about it. This year, there are 2,400 bills brought to for this session. Somebody mentioned it might be a record for how many bills are being brought forth. 244 deal with education, 50 of them deal with curriculum issues. I just encourage everybody to reach out to the representative and your senator too, to really tell them to put kids first and to keep the control local at the school board level. I think a lot of these efforts right now are taking things away from the school districts and their ability to actually educate the kids in the most effective way. And there are a lot of mandates coming down in this legislation. And I want to share one that the MSBA thought was getting a little more traction than usual. And just to make sure you're aware of what's happening, and I would encourage you to reach out to your own legislators. It's House Bill 2306. It wishes, and I think part of the challenge of some of these bills, it's the politicization of our role as school board members and the ways they want to do it, I think can make it a lot worse. And this one wants to move our election to November. And that is bad enough as it is. I think in a lot of ways we get lost on the ballot. We'd be at the very bottom. But it also wants to change all of our terms, your guys' terms to 4 years, our terms to 4 years. It would then make the election only on the presidential year and the midterm year. And to make it even worse, they'll do 5 elections on the presidential year and 2 elections on the midterm year. It would create a lot of chaos. I don't know why right now. We do have a good rotation right now. Every year, the board's changing out. Every year, it's on the municipal ballot, which I think is a local control. It's a good thing. But this is one example of some of the bills that are out there that could greatly affect the school board and then down the road affect the way we educate our kids and bring a lot more politics into the issues that we have to deal with. So just wanted to share that concern, and please reach out.
I've forgotten how busy late winter and early spring is when it comes to meetings with the school board. Several things I've done in the past month. I attended virtually the St. Louis School Board's professional learning community, is that correct? Community virtual meeting. This is a group of school board members from around the St. Louis area. St. Charles County, Jefferson County, St. Louis County are included. And we get together to discuss some of those things that really only school board members deal with. It's a rather unique position, an elected position, volunteer. And this time we talked about some of the challenges and successes that we've had coming out of COVID. This group's been around for I think it started a year before COVID hit. And I am going to be looking to this group for my fellow board members to continue with it, because I think that once it starts meeting again in person, there are going to be some really good things coming out of this group, because we've got some great school board members in the St. Louis area. And there are going to be all sorts of things that they're collaborating on. I also attended the legislative breakfast last Friday, which happened right before the event that Matt went to on Monday. This is a chance, along with Pattonville, Rockwood, and Special School District, for us to meet with some of our legislators. Not all of them come, and that's always a little disappointing, so that we can talk the needs of our school and they can talk about the bills that are coming. And just to reiterate what Matt was saying, it's really important for citizens to follow the education bills that are coming out of the Missouri State Legislature, because they're not necessarily friendly to local control of public education. You've got to pay attention to this, because it sets up the context in which school boards and school districts operate. So it's just really important to follow what's going on in Jefferson City. Finally, last night, I was one of several board members, and all of the SAP members to attend the Project Parkway meeting when we were talking about the projects that are coming up in the bond and getting feedback on those projects. And last night was great just because I got to see people I hadn't seen in years in person. And I don't know how many hugs I gave to people who I haven't seen in a really long time. This school district is built on collaboration. And last night was a great example of the kind of collaboration that goes on. And it was so refreshing to be able to do it again in person. And I hope that that continues, because even though we've kept things going as well as we can over the past 2 years, the kind of discussions that happened last night are something special. And it was just a good night.
To say a little bit more about Project Parkway, we had a steering committee meeting, and at that time we reviewed all the projects that basically are on the list to decide on what we finally decide on ultimately. I wasn't able to attend the meeting last night. Unfortunately, I wasn't feeling well at all, which was terrible because I love going to those meetings and seeing people that I haven't seen in a long time too. But it's just another way to collaborate, another way to get our teachers, our administrators, our community members, parents involved on big projects, major projects. And this is a big deal when we think of a bond issue, and getting all the input from others in terms of what they think is most important and what isn't so important from their viewpoint. So I just want to commend the district for having these sessions to have a lot of input from our community, from our faculty and staffs and administrators. That really makes a difference and gives some concrete direction in terms of, you know, where we need to go, particularly with this bond issue.
Well, I don't think anyone's mentioned the board workshop, so I get to highlight that one. A couple of Mondays ago, we had a board workshop. The main topic there was also talking about the bond issue and project list. And something that's just struck me when I reflected back on that meeting and also other recent meetings is just an appreciation for the care that Parkway takes around our students with disabilities and making sure that as we think about our project list and we think about how our buildings look and feel and our playgrounds and our grounds, we give extra care and attention to making sure our facilities are those that all of our students can use and enjoy. And not just like meeting the basic legal requirements, but making sure we normalize experience for kids and that all of our kids are, again, able to really be a full part of our school community and not feel left out or excluded. And I know we do that as we think about policies. I know we do that as we think about the health and safety of our students, from our school nurses to our counselors to our teachers, all of our staff. But I just think, you know, we don't call that out often enough, and it's really an important movement that our country has gone through in the last, 50 years in terms of just making sure that everybody's able to be a full part of our community. So I just want to extend appreciation and raise that out because I don't think it gets called out separately enough. So I'll leave it there.
So usually in the car on the way here, I like to sort of mentally compose and rehearse what sometimes appears to be kind of off the cuff, which mostly it is. But in doing so, I forgot about all of those meetings, and I guess I did have something to talk about. I forgot, they all kind of blur together now that we're back doing things in person. I forgot that I attended all those things too. But what was not mentioned is we did also, three of us attended the McKelvey Trivia Night, where the chairman of the board table took a disappointing third place finish, and we don't have to get into the details, but there was a Kool-Aid round that didn't really go our way. But it was nice to be out back in person supporting the schools in the district, and those kind of events tend to be more fun than even a board workshop. But I want to talk a little bit more about the legislative breakfast. School boards are elected. We're not supposed to be political, and we try not to be. We're here for kids, not to advocate for policies or whatnot. But those legislative meetings where we have the legislators in the room are kind of telling because of who does the talking and what they have to talk about. And there's a lot of legislators that have a lot of ideas about education and talk about education bills, and there's a lot of legislators that talk in just sort of general sound bites, and they all pay lip service to the school board, talk about how important our role is, and it's certainly nice to hear that. But then For those that advocate for local control, then there's bills supported by some of these folks that kind of are anything but, telling teachers what they should teach, talking about, what schools should get funding for what. And, as a community, a lot of these things can fly under the radar. We all have very busy lives, and we all have lots of things to keep track of. And I'm sure it's not on most people's minds what's going on in Jefferson City from day to day, but those folks are making rules that affect our schools and our kids. And whatever side of things you fall down, whatever side you fall on, I think it is important for the community to take note of what is happening in the leadership in this state, and perhaps us as a board can do a better job of maybe educating the community and working with the community to make everyone aware of what is being proposed and give the citizens that we represent an opportunity to take notice of those things and to speak up. But on an entirely different note, this is the part I rehearsed before I remember those meetings, is on the way here, I drove past a couple of schools, and it was late in the day. It's when spring sports, you see teams on the fields practicing, and it made me really happy because this is the spring I remember when I was in school was a real special time. You had a kind of a feeling, when now that we're adults and every day is kind of the same, but when you're a kid, the calendar turns to spring and the end of the school year's in sight and the weather's starting to get nice. There's sort of a bounce in your step, and it was just nice to see that because this is the first spring in a while that there's something close to a normal calendar and a normal spring, and just made me really happy to see that going on and put my, in my own mind, I go back to the, 17-year-old version of me and how happy that made me. And, the version of me got to occasionally leave school and go to a Cardinals game, and hopefully we get that figured out too. But it's nice to see things getting a little bit back to normal, and I'm happy that those kids get to have that experience and, as the seasons turn. That was the longest I've ever been at this. I'm sorry, you guys.
Well, it's funny because as I was driving here and I was parking my car, I purposefully parked in a spot where no other cars were around me, and I'm backing in so I can all of a sudden a soccer ball comes running right past my car, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find a different spot to park. So it is great to see the kids out there though, so it's a lot of fun. On the topic also of the legislative breakfast, which I attended, Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft was in attendance and visited us, and it was a welcome sight to, so many times it's wonderful when we do have legislators with us that can actually see what is happening within our schools. And he did go and visit Highcroft and West High, I think, right? And so I think we really tried to get the message also to him and our other legislators of what we are doing locally in our schools and in our school districts, and tried to exemplify some of the great work that at least we in here are Parkway doing. And I know that our other schools that were in attendance with us were on board with trying to educate them. It's one thing to be in Jefferson City doing your job and thinking about things, but it's another thing to actually be there, be on site, be in the schools, talk to the teachers, see the activities that are going on, and meet with the actual individuals that are running the operations on a day-to-day basis. So I greatly appreciate the legislators who did show up, because then they're at least there and talking with us. Also on the Project Parkway meeting that we attended last night, I think if you were not able to attend, the slides are supposed to be on the Parkway website, correct? I think they're going to be on the website, or they are on the website. So if you were not able to go to the Project Parkway meeting, all the presentations are online on the district website to take a look at and to get caught up on all the different projects that we're trying to evaluate at this time. On Monday evening, I attended the Special School District Governing Council meeting as our representative on that. And that was the evening that we elected Special School District Board of Education members. The individuals that were elected that evening, Parkway Subdistrict 3 was up for election. The incumbent and only candidate to run in Subdistrict 3 was Katie Potroff, and she was reelected. And then for Subdistrict 4, representing the school districts of Ferguson, Florissant, Pattonville, and Riverview Gardens, Scott Moeller was elected. He currently was elected to fill a one-year term from somebody that had left. So he will now be the representative for that sub-district. There was one other candidate who filed. It was interviewed, Connie Hargy, and she was a phenomenal individual that we're hoping will still continue to be involved in that. So that was a tough decision, but Mr. Mueller eventually won the election on that. Thank you.
I'll try not to be too repetitive, but to add on to what Debbie was saying about Project Parkway, if you go to the Parkway website, there's a nice picture of some kids, but right below that, the very top thing says Join the Conversation Facilities 2030. And if you click there, that'll take you to a bunch of the information. There's links to the surveys that were shared last night, and that will be the best place to provide feedback on all the projects that we've been discussing. And I think that is open through March the 16th. And speaking of Project Parkway, I too want to echo my sentiments to just how well everything has been put together. It always is, so I'm not really surprised. But I really was appreciative of being in the room, like Pam said, with so many people that I hadn't seen in so long, and really just thankful that so many people came out. We had, I think somebody told me we printed 250 copies of the program for last night, and we handed out every single one, and it was just a great time to get some feedback and have so many parents and community members provide their input. So thank you for those that did show up last night. And thank you if you still have an opportunity to do the survey. I highly encourage that. Just want to mention a couple of things that have been going on. Like my fellow board members, I was able to participate in the board workshop and the Project Parkway Steering Committee with Sam. Those are always great. Since our last board meeting, we had our Spirit of Excellence ceremony. It was virtual again this year, but it was a great event put on by our I think our marketing department put it all together, but many of us had roles in it virtually, and so I was very appreciative for the opportunity to be able to recognize so many of our African American scholars in our district. And also we had a religious leaders meeting a few weeks ago, or actually last week, where we got together with a number of religious leaders from different congregations throughout our community, and that's always good to share what's going on in Parkway with them and hear what's going on from their perspectives in their own communities. And then, let's see, I also want to mention a couple of weeks ago we had something called Trades Day, and that was held at Fern Ridge, and it was kind of the brainchild of a teacher from Parkway South named Amber Rice. She lost her husband last year, and she put this event together in his memory. He was a painter, and I think part of the Painters Union here in St. Louis, and it was her idea that we should put together some kind of endeavor that will kind of provide opportunities for our students to learn more about things besides college. College isn't for everyone, we know that. But we had, I think we had 5 or 6 or 7 different trades represented there that day, and it was a pretty good chunk of the day. And I think we had 30 or 40 kids that came, all high school kids, and they had an opportunity to hear from these different trade representatives, whether they were painters or electricians or construction managers, things like that. And it really. We had such great feedback from the students afterwards that it was so meaningful to them to hear about something other than math and science and reading and writing, but it was real world stuff. It was stuff that they in some of their minds were preparing for, not necessarily to go to college, but to go out and get a job. And those are things that we need to remember, that there are opportunities out there for kids that might not have their sights set on college. They want or they need to go right into a working profession. So thanks to Amber and all those who helped her put that event together, because it was a really great event. We're already talking about doing it on a larger scale in the future. And then lastly, I want to mention that this weekend On Saturday from 10 to 12 is our STEM Fest. It's an event that we didn't get to have last year. I've been to it before, both with my kids and just as a board member observing, and it's an opportunity for all ages, pre-K through 12, to come, and there's just a tremendous amount of STEM-related activities. They're going to have things, everything from computer-related things to art and music, coding. If you're a parent and you got stuff to get rid of, we even have paper shredding that day. So it's at Southwest Middle School, and it's again from 10 to 12 on Saturday. Or I'm sorry, 10 to 2, 10 to 2 on Saturday, and encourage you to come out and check it out. So that's all I got.
Guys really covered the bases here for the most part, but just a few things. Just to expand a little bit, Jeff and I had the pleasure of signing 664 certificates for the Spirit of Excellence, honoring 664 African-American scholars. This is part of February is Black History Month, and this event now has had, I think, Greg, this was the 26th, and we're trying to celebrate the 25th anniversary, but maybe next year we'll be able to do it in person. And really, Charlotte EJ, the Pupil Services, Student Services, put that together at the heart of it. So again, it's a wonderful event, and hopefully next year we'll be back in person at Two Hill. I do want to also mention, going back to the board candidates, March 30th in this very room will be a candidate forum. The League of Women Voters will be sponsoring at 7 o'clock. So again, to those of you as candidates, will have an opportunity to talk about the future of Parkway and other issues that evening. I'm happy to announce, he's not here tonight, we recognize the Teachers of the Year, but Parkway has the Missouri Athletic Director of the Year, and that's Mike Roth, our district AD, and so deserving. Mike is, Chelsea and I share the office space with Mike, and Mike is tirelessly working all the time at events all over the district, 4 high schools, keep him hopping, and so Mike Roth is certainly deserving of that recognition. This is also, by the way, besides school board recognition, Social Workers Week. And in Parkway, we, I think, have 11, 12 social workers, correct? I think we've trying to think, something like that. And so, and social workers play such a key part of working with students, but families. They're that connection, and oftentimes really help so much. And of course, our social workers, many of them have taken the lead in our food pantry. So I want to recognize our social workers. My team, almost all of us, almost on a daily basis, are working to select new leadership in the district. We have, I think Dr. Bogus reported earlier, we're about halfway there. Although new positions keep popping up in the leadership realm. I'm talking principals and district office personnel, but we've been able to already make some wonderful additions and more to come. But we're busy almost daily screening and looking at applications and doing some interviewing, but we're proud of the progress we've made. And there's one other thing I was going to comment on. Oh, I think we already covered that, the fact that Jay Ashcroft was in the district. We did have the pleasure, I know Greg had the pleasure to escort him around, and it was a wonderful day. And I think he had a wonderful opportunity at the high school, but he really enjoyed his opportunity with the 5th graders at Highcroft. They really kind of put it to him. They're pretty, he thought they one of the best groups he was associated with. And it was a pleasure to see him, as was mentioned. Elected official Jay Ashcroft makes an attempt to get to all counties and talk about voting and being a good citizen. So it was really a pleasure to have him in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have a kind of an average-sized consent agenda, which we've all had an opportunity to review. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the March 9th, 2022 board materials.
So moved.
Second.
Is there anything to be pulled to action or closed? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have the consideration and action of Parkway's pandemic response plan. So I will call on Dr. Keith Marty and Dr. Chelsea Watson for any comments.
Well, as Dr. Watson is walking, I will just simply say we continue to review our pandemic response plan, even though, as was reported, data is looking better, but we are taking this seriously in terms of making sure our pandemic response plan is reviewed at every board meeting every 30 days. And so, again, we'll turn over to Dr. Watson to provide just a few changes at this month's.
Just a few. Good evening again. We have been focused on our mission each and every time that we talk about our pandemic response plan and everything else. So as we continue to focus on our mission and what we are trying to achieve with all of our students, we again revisit some numbers. I shared some numbers with you last month. I thought you'd like to see a few of those numbers and where we are today. So January 16th, we were at a pretty high number at 617 positive cases with students and 145 with staff. And if you go to the bottom of the chart today, we have 7 student positive cases and 0 staff positive cases. So things continue to look better here in Parkway. I am going to talk about one change this evening, transportation. Remember that list used to be quite longer when we started this, so really quickly. Previously, our pandemic response plan had a section on transportation, as you will see it on the screen. Last month, we were requiring masks on school buses based on the United States Department of Transportation and the CDC. We are bringing to you, per the communication on March 1st, asking for an official action to be taken based on the recommendation to remove this from the pandemic response plan. Again, this is based on the fact that on February 25th, the CDC removed the requirement for universal mask wearing on school buses. The change was made to align with the CDC's updated guidance that no longer recommends universal indoor mask wearing in schools located in areas with low to medium level of community spread. And that is where we are at this time. Any questions?
Okay. There you go. Thank you. So may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education adopt the resolution regarding the 2021-2022 Pandemic Response Plan as presented in the March 9th, 2022 board meeting materials?
So moved.
Second.
Debbie. Roll call, please.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Dr. Ciartino?
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mr. Cobb?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have a guest tonight. I'd like to welcome Mike Seppi, our Director of Parkway Rockwood Community Education, to talk to us about new partnerships, extending partnerships.
Good evening, members of the board. Dr. Marty, good to see you. It's always a pleasure to be here tonight. I have to say, we did not plan this, but as I was listening to board comments tonight, Mrs. Hill, you mentioned about Parkway being a school district built on collaboration. Well, that surely fits well into my presentation tonight, so thank you for saying that, because I completely agree. So I'm here tonight to give a presentation that really covers 3 components. The first is just an update on the current status of community ed. The second is a brief overview of the impact that COVID had on our function and department over the past couple of years. And then the third is to talk about an extension to the partnership agreement. Okay, so as a reminder, if you thinking back about community ed, whenever I get an opportunity to come up and speak with you, I'm always excited to talk about who we are and what we do. So what is our vision? Our vision is to build the premier lifelong learning organization in North America. And when we say that, we've talked a lot about that as a staff. When we talk about that, that does not come from a place of ego. Rather, it comes from a place of us knowing that if we are building one of the premier programs in North America, that means we're best serving our customers, who are the patrons of both Parkway and Rockwood. So we're really committed to making sure what we do is focused on putting us in a place so that we can best serve our customers. The core values that we have when we're looking to bring staff on board to work with us, whether it's in a part-time or a full-time capacity, we're looking for folks who understand that we are a place where hard work and fun meet. Together we're better. we make it happen and we care. Those are all values that we have in our staff, and they align very well with the missions of both Parkway and Rockwood. And then the pledge to our community is pretty much everywhere. We put that everywhere. So when you get the catalog in the mail, if you open up to the first page, you'll see it on the bottom. If you go to our website, you'll see it on the page. If you walk down the hall of our office, we have it plastered on the wall about 8 feet wide. So we really work hard to provide the best experience possible in all that we do. And so what do we do? Well, we provide experiences for youth, families, adults in a variety of areas, and those are listed here on the screen, so I won't go through all of them. I was looking back at the roster of the board, and this, as I was putting this presentation together, this is probably one of my most favorite slides, because I noticed Dr. Sortino and Mrs. Hopper, you both were on the board back in 2014 when the partnership started, and I'm sure you remember this. This slide was on that presentation in 2014. So as we were working to plan for the partnership and anticipate what we could expect, these are 3 things that were listed, and I didn't even have to edit them for tonight. What's exciting to know is here we are 8 years later, and in fact, what we had hoped, what we had planned, what we had worked towards has come to reality. And so the partnership is a proactive approach that provides enhanced and expanded opportunities for both patrons of Parkway and Rockwood. It is a fiscally responsible and beneficial approach that realizes cost savings and other efficiencies. And over the last 8 years, it has become a national model of what can be achieved in community ed when school districts work together to serve their patrons. So this is my personal favorite slide on the whole presentation. So what does community ed look like? I put this slide up here. It's a lot of information. I won't go through all of it, but I do want to call attention to one thing, because we've seen a change due to COVID, and I'm going to talk about that in depth in just a minute. But prior to COVID, when we looked at where we were at and what our numbers were, we're going to focus on FY19 and the FY22 columns here. First, I guess I should say at the top, you can see the last 5 years, a running total of total seats filled. Remember, when we talk about seats filled, that's not necessarily unique individuals. So someone who signs up for Adventure Club is 1 seat for the entire school year. But if I take 6 consecutive lessons of swim lessons, that's 6 seats filled, even though that's 1 person. So when we talk about numbers in community ed, we talk about seats filled. And you can see where COVID kind of hit us hard. So as we were heading through FY19, we were really great until March of FY19, we were really great in FY20 until March of 20 came along, and then we kind of fell off the cliff a little bit there. And so FY21 was a tough year. But as you look down to the bottom of the screen, I'm really excited to talk about where we're at in FY22. But it really is a change from what we experienced before pre-COVID. So if you look at the Parkway Adventure Club numbers, we'll focus on the FY19 and FY22 columns here. You'll see we're down by about 38% in the number of school-age care participants. That's, of course, directly tied to folks who are now able to work from home, either full or part-time. And so while we still have lots of kids in the program, oftentimes those schedules are reduced because now parents can work from home 2 days a week instead of before maybe they were working home from 5. But where we are seeing growth is in the interest-based programs. And I won't read through all this, I'll just highlight a couple. Our largest sports program is our basketball league. And prior to COVID, our highest number was 2,208. Well, we're finishing this Saturday is the finish of our basketball league, and we have 2,224 kids. So we are higher. We've set a record for the basketball league even pre-COVID. And when you look down that list, with the exception of the adult-based programs, because our adult-based programs are primarily older adults, and we're seeing still some hesitancy to come back into the programs. But when you look at the other programs, and specifically these sports programs, we're actually setting new high registration marks. We are seeing across the board, whether it's out at the park at Babbler State Park, or whether it's through sports, or whether it's through enrichment, families are craving for experiences again. And what better place to have them right here in your neighborhood. So we're happy to be able to deliver that. And then as we look ahead to what it looked like just overall for community ed, you can kind of see here, this is just a by year what the total revenue was that has been brought in for all of community ed. So our high watermark was FY19, the last year pre-COVID, just over $12 million. We really took a hit, almost a 50% hit, as things kind of hit their worst. But now we're coming back. And I'm happy to say that projection for FY22, just about a week and a half ago, we surpassed all of FY21 revenue about a week and a half ago here in FY22. And so here we are at the beginning of March. So we have a lot of opportunities and time here to continue to serve patrons. So we're really excited about the trajectory is certainly up now, whereas we've kind of dealt with the dip. And then as you look ahead to next year, assuming, of course, based on what we know today, we anticipate that growth to continue. I always like to provide this slide too, just to paint a picture of what community ed is. So here alone today, March 9th, 2022, we have over 2,500 different participants in community ed locations, community ed programs at over 40 different locations throughout Parkway and Rockwood. A lot of that is Adventure Club, of course. Our youngest participant is 3 years old, learning to swim. And I couldn't decide here, so I put them both on there. Our oldest participants, we have an 87-year-old who's taking English as second language classes and an 84-year-old who's learning country line dance. So just kind of shows the broad spectrum of services that are provided throughout the community. And so I mentioned about COVID, and so what we learned from COVID was quite a bit. What we most learned from COVID is that we needed to become a more versatile operation in order to better respond to disruption in the future. We anticipate disruption for us in our world can become more of an exception, I wouldn't say than the norm, but more often than what we had experienced in the past. And so given that we are a fee-based operation, meaning that we rely on the fees charged for programs to cover all of our expenses, it's important that we're able to adjust and be more versatile when we see things like school-age care demand decrease. How do we make up for that? And so I'll talk in a minute how we're going to be doing that. We have created some new program opportunities. I'm really excited about this. This is very small in number, but I'll give you an example of some hybrid programs we're doing. So right now, if you want to take yoga, some of our classes, we essentially have it offered in person. We set up the camera. We have the ring light there. You can also come in and do it online through Zoom. So we have our one instructor providing instruction both in person in the classroom as well as online to those who want to take it. And so we will look and see, as long as there is demand, to continue to offer those opportunities. Because of COVID, we had to take a review of our organizational structure to try to identify some efficiencies. You saw how the numbers went down. And yes, we did have to do some staffing adjustments out of that, but we were able to minimize that by looking at opportunities to create efficiencies within the organization. I can say without a doubt that I do believe the partnership allowed us to weather the storm during the pandemic. Had there not been a partnership between Parkway and Rockwood, I think we'd probably be having a different conversation about what community ed might look like separately in each district right now. So, as we look ahead to building the new community ed, I already talked about how we want to continue to diversify our program offerings. One of the things that we're doing, as I mentioned, is to look at more of a 50-50 model in terms of revenue. So we have two components. We have our school age, which is a venture club, and then everything else we call course side. And so looking at trying to make sure that both of those are equal in their representation of revenue as a way for us to reduce dependency on any one program. We continue to look at our processes and procedures. We're looking at new ways to address staffing shortages. So an example there, I mean, in the course of a year, in all of community ed, we may have 300 to 400 part-time staff across all of our program. We hadn't been doing a very good job about letting those part-time staff know that, hey, if you're looking for more hours, did you also know, in addition to working for a venture club after school, you could come be an instructor out at Baldwin State Park and do some activities with camps and various things out there. So we're really looking internally within the staff that we have to say, how can we provide more opportunities for those staff? We are looking to double down on our efforts on customer experience. I'm a firm believer in everything we do in community ed provides an experience for our patrons, whether that's the registration process, being in the program, or the way we follow up with you after a program ends. We want your experience to be positive. So we're going to continue to double down on improving our customer experience. We are also re-engaging our needs assessment process. I know Dr. Marty and I have had conversations about this in the past, but what this really is in its simplest form is a way for us to listen to the community to tell us what they want, not us assume what we think they want. And so we have a very defined process on how we do needs assessment. And I can tell you that we're starting with looking at the early childhood audience. So we're seeing a lot of interest from parents of early childhood students that are looking for opportunities. So over the next few months, we're going to be doing needs assessment in the early childhood arena. And then we're just going to continue in our work overall to build the premier lifelong learning organization in North America. The future is bright. It has been a tough 2 years, as probably many of us here in the room know, but the future is very bright in community ed, which is really what I'm here to talk about tonight. So I just want to give you a brief overview about the highlights of the agreement extension. So over the last few months, I have been working with both Parkway and Rockwood attorneys on drafting that agreement. Of course, Patty and her counterpart in Rockwood have been involved in that as well, and thank you for that, Patty. So as we look at the agreement extension, what we're looking for is the initial agreement that we're in now was for 10 years. And there was always a desire to extend that another 10 years. So here, while we're in year 8, there was kind of an agreement amongst everyone that was involved that we don't want to lose those 2 years. And so the agreement extension that we're talking about now that would start July 1 of 2022 would actually be 12 years. And so then it would net the 20 years between the two different agreements. As we look at what changed or what changes needed to be made, I'm also happy to say very minimal. So again, all the planning that took place many years ago, trying to anticipate what we think would happen, we found very minimal things that needed to be changed in the agreement because it did prove to be very thorough. So those changes and those changes that are worthy of highlighting are back in 2017 when the Parkway and Rockwood adult education literacy programs were combined. That was done as an amendment to the agreement. So now that context is just folded into the new agreement. There's no longer an amendment that's separate from that. We have revised the process for how revenues and expenses are assigned, and that was out of a conversation with Patty and Paul Northington, the CFO in Rockwood, about better assigning those revenues and expenses. So that new language is built into the agreement. We have removed the startup cost section because all the Adventure Club sites in Parkway have been started. So there's no reason to have a startup cost section. And then just some minor edits to clean up the language and better define timelines in various meetings throughout the year. For example, Mike Roth and I talk regularly and we meet regularly, but it was just putting that a better definition of when that needs to happen. So as I wrap up, I just want to give a couple thank yous. First of all, I want to thank the board. I want to thank Dr. Marty. The folks in community ed work really hard every day, but having the support, the ongoing support of the board, Dr. Marty, everyone in Parkway makes our jobs easier, so thank you for that. I also definitely want to take an opportunity to thank Patty, who's here, and Mike is not. I thought maybe he would be here, Mike Roth, but Patty and Mike get a lot of my phone calls and emails, and fortunately they return them. So I appreciate that, Patty. Thank you very much. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but I thank you for your time tonight.
Well, thank you, Mike. I know we've had an opportunity to review the documents, and I certainly don't have any questions about those. They look great. I think we're looking forward to continuing the partnership. It's been a great 8 years so far, and so much good has come out of it, even through the pandemic. It was amazing to see how your group adjusted and just kept on going, kept on providing all the services that you have been when possible. And we've just been impressed with all the work that's gone into continuing that. So thank you very much for everything you guys do.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay.
I just can't help but I have to say that we are so fortunate. Mike's been very complimentary, but Mike and his staff are just wonderful workers. I know Mike Roth, Patty Bibero, and I are always excited to meet with them because Mike comes so prepared. He's comes with budget information, planning information about programs, and so it's been really a pleasure, Mike. And you didn't put in an agreement, but you're going to be around till 2034, I think, right? That's part of the...
We can talk.
But it's just been a pleasure. I won't hold you that, Mike, but it's been a pleasure. One thing we should talk about, Jeff, to your point, it's been, we talk about Mike being flexible. When we really tried to decide what we're going to do with 6th grade camp, and we realized that maybe overnights weren't going to be appropriate, Kevin and Eddie Madison really, looked to see how we could continue it. And Mike, boy, thanks so much. Mike made Babbler available last year and again this year. We hope to eventually go back to our regular Y experience. But Kevin just said today we're already a couple sessions into it. It's going well. Mike, thanks so much. You did a great job. I know some of us got a chance to tour that program last year. So I guess an example of Mike being there, a great example of how community education as an umbrella can help us, and that was a wonderful example. I have to say too that went to the Summer Expo, and while I think you're down a little bit this year. We traditionally have an expo that in February that Mike opens up to vendors that can come and talk about the summer program. I know usually you got 1,500 people. I don't think you had quite that number this year, a number of vendors, but it was still a great day. Again, another way to work with the community to let them come in and talk about what they can offer. So again, it's just been such a pleasure to work with Mike, and it's gonna. Again, his work through the pandemic. He's very honest. By the way, he had to make some tough staffing decisions, because of loss of revenue. He did that as classy as he could. That's a tough thing to do. It was very difficult for Mike and his staff, but he did it and so professionally. So I just have to say I'm thrilled. Tim Richter, the interim superintendent, and I met with Mike back in the fall. Tim was 100% behind this, this renewal, mainly so Mike and his staff can continue planning. There's going to be no interruptions on future planning about Adventure Club and other programs. So to rather wait till 2 years from now, do it now. We now know the program's going to be in place, and Mike, his staff, our Patty and Paul and others can really plan for the future. So again, Mike, I just have to salute you and your staff, the work you're doing. A little story, if I could just love to tell. But when I came to Parkway, I was a little concerned about our community education program. Just didn't seem at that point to have a lot of life. We had participation, and Paul Tandy and Mark Stockwell at that time did a little visit, and they came back and they said, you should see what Rockwood. They realized Rockwood's got this wonderful program. I think we should partner. And my response is, well, we want to do that. And so I got talked into it, and it's a wonderful example. We talked earlier about collaboration and partnership, and again, it just has worked out so well. So again, Mike, thank you so much. Thank you, board, for your support as well.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being here tonight. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Jeff, if I can just real quick comment on the important role the Adventure Club staff plays, just really quick. My daughter and son are 2 of the 803 students that are in Adventure Club every day before and after. And my daughter, my 8-year-old, has told me that Mrs. Pace is her most trusted adult in the building.
She's
And that's
great.
the
She's
Adventure
really
Club
great.
leader at the
Yeah.
school.
She's great.
So, and she's there all day, and Claire seeks her out during the day, and Claire's a kid that needs trusted adults in the building. So I think it's just important that they're integrated in with our staff and or another adult that kids can go to and trust. So
Great.
kudos to Mrs. Pace.
Thank
and
you.
I'm sure all the other staff as well.
Thank you.
Thank you again. So may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the cooperative agreement included in the board materials with Rockwood School District with the extension through June 30th, 2034.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Vicki.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Dr. Sirotino?
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. We have nothing further tonight, so may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all for attending and/or watching. See you next month.